Yo, boy, so I'm looking at Kevin Drew's Twitter, and this is, as you can see from his description here, the associate director, right, in charge of zombie systems and Outbreak. Meh. So this is a guy that's going to be making. I don't really give a shit about Modern Warfare 3. That's already kind of dead to me. But COD 24 Zombies is all this guy. This is his full development cycle game. He's going to be in charge. Looking through what he's done in the past, unfortunately, he doesn't tweet anymore because I don't know, some issues with the platform. Uh, he thinks he's getting hated on or something. I'm not quite too sure. But so he actually put up before he stopped using Twitter. He put up uh, a kind of description of what he's done over the years, and I was just kind of looking through this to see what, because this guy's gonna be making the new maps and the new games. So I'm just looking at what he's done in the past, what we can expect. And so he goes through like one of his first ever things. Quantum of Soul is cool, but actually his first work at Treyarch on COD was Vorkuta, talking about pushing the AI counts or whatever, some basic stuff for a new guy in the industry, which is kind of cool because Vorkuta is kind of like, people think of COD, they think of Vorkuta as kind of the most iconic mission that they've ever done. And then Black Ops 2 campaign, whatever. This mission was kind of fine. One of the intro missions to Black Ops 2. I don't really remember it too much, but I do remember there was the Thor hammer Easter egg, which was kind of cool. And since he was a scripter, he might have worked on that a little bit. But going down some more, his first zombies map, Mob of the Dead, is a great thing to see because you can see him kind of heading into zombies as the golden era kind of starts of mob origins into Black Ops 3. And we keep going down. He worked on Origins, and something I really like to see here was he implemented some of the quest steps that he says, the Easter egg steps, because he also worked on Vorkuta. There was a cool little connection there for him. This is really interesting going forward that he actually worked on Origins. People know it as one of the most complicated and one of the best eggs that we ever got. And the fact that he worked on that is huge, in my opinion, on the future of zombies. And hopefully we can get some of those OG steps back. But also, what's really important to see here is that the quest steps were designed by this guy, Mark Maestas, who's actually the lead designer now. I don't know if he's still solely zombies, but since he's lead designer, he's probably more systems and mechanics, which is good to see in that someone who worked so heavily on Origins is working on having a bigger role within the team. But I would like to see this kind of Origins philosophy come back to zombies as we knew it before. Going down further, you'll see why Kevin Drew being in charge of zombies and Mark Maestas being more of a design lead in the overall game is kind of worrisome. Because as we move down, Black Ops 3 campaign missions, whatever, we all know how the Black Ops 3 campaign went. He was kind of less on story, more of just design levels, which, I gotta say, Black Ops 3's campaign didn't really have the most inspired level design, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. But we move down further, and this is crazy. His first design lead on a zombies map was Zetsubo, which, you think about Zetsubo in the Black Ops 3 DLC season and how it did, turn some heads. It was kind of unexpected, and now we know why. It was because Kevin Drew's philosophy, why things were as they were. And it's actually really interesting because if you think about Zetsubo, it had a lot of parts. I remember looking at it the first day and all the YouTubers were holding the touchpad to open the schoolboard and they were seeing all the different parts and they were like, oh my god, look at all these parts. And that is one of the reasons why Zetsubo wasn't received as well, was because people saw it as overly complicated for no reason, which will tie in later, this is very interesting to see, because as we move forward you're going to see why Zetsubo is going to come up. I'm going to mention it again in a minute here. But so going down chronologically, the next map he designed was Blood of the Dead, which also works to the point that I'm going to introduce later. And if you go back up to Zetsubo, something I want to stress here is that he says, I learned so much about what people do and don't enjoy in zombies. And I think he actually misunderstands when he says this. And I know he's the design director or whatever, but I actually think that his philosophy here is a little flawed. So if we go down, he works on Blood of the Dead. People don't really like the egg, but he was a design director. He wasn't in charge of the Easter egg, as far as I know. But he was in charge of the map layout, which also wasn't received well. But whatever, this is only his second map. And then if we go down, he made a banger. He made Ancient Evil, and that's a map that a lot of people really enjoy. The people that did stick with Black Ops 4. Which is, it's weird to see that he said, rather than chasing something I thought players wanted, I created a map I'd want to play. And that really strikes me as contradictory to the other things he's done, because if we go down, we all know he did the Cold War zombie systems. He said, based on my past zombies experience, I set out to unify mechanics with multiplayer zombies and make them as accessible as possible. And I think that when we go back up to Zetsubo and we see that he learned what people do and don't enjoy, I think kind of that outrage at Zetsubo's overcomplicatedness on launch led him to believe that this kind of accessibility was needed in zombies, and then again being reinforced when he did Blood of the Dead and Blood of the Dead's poor reaction. So what he did, he made two maps, which, one of them is still one of the greatest maps ever, but I think that the initial response to Zetsubo and Blood led him to, and when you think about Ancient Evil too, Ancient Evil isn't as part heavy, isn't as complicated as those maps. So I think his idea of complicated maps was he kind of executed them not as great as he could have, and that led to negative reception, which led him to believe that this complication or perceived complication needed to be completely removed in favor of accessibility. And he takes that accessibility even further when he talks about he was a lead designer on Outbreak, which I don't know, some people like, I don't know how, but I kind of find Outbreak to be kind of a snooze fest, to be real with you. But so he's talking about Outbreak gives the player control over the pacing, which, just a little side note, personally, I don't think that is necessarily a good thing. I like my maps to be more tailor-made, linear experiences. Each step, well, not step, but each fragment of like the setup and then getting into the power scaling is more designed meticulously, because I think when we have maps like that, like Mob and Origins, and even like DE and Shadows, where the power scaling is really linearly designed, that they can be more specific in what they want to do. As like you see in Outbreak, the player does have complete control of pacing, but you're kind of just like running across the map, and you got to get in a car and drive, and then there's a lot of downtime even if you are trying to go as fast as possible. But that's a topic for another day. But the real thing that I want to drive home here is that he made he made a great map that was just received poorly at the time, and then he makes something else that's complicated that's perceived poorly at the time, and I mean poorly now too. Blood kind of sucks. But this really is where his philosophy of accessibility came from all those years ago, even all the way back in like 2016 when Zetsubo dropped. It's like those seeds, literally seeds of doubt. The achievement from Zetsubo for completing the Easter egg. That's crazy. But those seeds of doubt that are planted in this gameplay philosophy in Zetsubo that trickle their way down, and then Blood of the Dead, which is his other shot at creating a more sophisticated zombies map, and it kind of flops. And then Ancient Evil, he takes the reins off that just like a little bit and sees more success, and then he goes all in to accessibility in Cold War, which Cold War was nice, it was a little too accessible, but fine. And it worries me to see that this accessibility, now that Outbreak, you see, had like the most players ever because of COVID, that's getting reinforced, and he thinks this accessibility thing is the new wave, and that he's really seeing positive feedback, and I'm sure he's getting positive feedback from Activision about it because of the player numbers. And it's just worrying to see that this philosophy of accessibility in zombies is getting pushed so hard. Zetsubo was so close to being such a great map, and it's just a shame that it was received poorly on launch. This was something interesting though, touching back to Mark Mestas being the lead designer. That's to see him going from working on the iconic steps from Origins to being a lead designer really nice to see that he's still there. And hopefully, I don't know, it just worries me about COD, and all this is about COD 24. MW3 is not even a speck in my mind right now, but yeah, so this is just like really interesting for me that Kevin Drew's 15 years, and he went from you can see his path as these early missions led to him being put on the zombies team, and then his work on some of ironically the best maps led to his philosophy in creating some of the worst, in my opinion, in Outbreak. Yeah, I just hope that we can somehow get a map that maybe has some of the accessibility that was found in Cold War while retaining some of these early map philosophies like Zetsubo, Origins, and Mob, because this is really, when I saw that he worked on these three maps particularly, I was like, this guy really does have potential to make something great in COD 24. Anyway, that's it. Peace.